much have you drank tonight, Judson?
I've only had 2 beers, actually.
That's what everybody says when they get pulled over. I've only had 2 beers.
I only remember 2 beers.
So we are live. I think we went live in the middle of Judson's intro music there. So,
that's perfect.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows. If you like what we're doing and would like to help support the show, visit patreon.com/afteractionproject. If you'd like to give us some free support and appreciation, we'd greatly appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes. Tonight's episode, just like every episode, is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. Be sure to check out the other great podcasts on the Firearms Radio Network, by visiting firearmsradio.tv. Tonight, we are joined by David of Dynamic Combative Solutions and his student Tristan. Together, we're going to bring you into the student seat of David's EDC Essentials course. And if you guys missed our brief intro, Judson had his own custom intro music for us today, which was nice. That's completely funded by your Patreon support. And I think if we increase that, we'll not allow him to do that anymore. But why don't you, David, talk to us a little bit about how you got, remind our viewers, we had you on earlier last year, I believe it was, but go ahead and remind our viewers a little bit about yourself, what got you into the firearms training industry, and really what led you to developing and putting this EDC Essentials course together.
Man, I've been doing this a long time. Started shooting at the age of 6, started martial arts at the age of 10, joined the military at 18, served the 82nd Airborne Division. I was in the infantry, volunteered with my local county sheriffs, Maricopa County, for 4 or 5 years, served overseas as a civilian contractor in Baghdad, Mosul, Iraq in 2007, 2008. When I came home from that, I got involved with church security, and the director of security wanted to do some training for the church. A friend of mine recently bought a range, asked me if I'd come work for him and do some of the more advanced classes. Really enjoyed doing that. And then ended up kind of reorganizing and restructuring and reteaching all the instructors, came out with all new course curriculum. We did that for the better part of 6 years. We outgrew the 3 stores that we built together, and DCS was actually both of our brainchild that we were working on together. Then he unexpectedly passed. So I was kind of left with either continuing working for the other company or starting my own business, and everybody was encouraging me to start my own business. And, sometimes when you're working for somebody else, they want you to fit inside a box. And I didn't want to have to conform to the box anymore. So I thought this would be a great time to give it a go. And it's been both a blessing and a curse. It's very scary to start your own business, but so far it's been doing really well. And basically, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's a disconnect between like martial arts and self-defense and firearms. And I've got probably enough experience to get me in trouble in any one category. So that's why I've recruited a lot of instructors. We have, I want to say 15 instructors that work for us now, who have been with me throughout this whole journey. And each one of them specializes in different categories. So we do classes like pistol, rifle, shotgun, precision long range rifle, baton. We built a taser civilian training many years ago. That's what we initially did the first interview with. And now we're getting into the hand-to-hand combatives and the knife stuff as well. One of my instructors is a Filipino martial arts master who does a really great job with that class. And it's not really a one and done. It's something you're going to want to keep taking and keep taking and keep taking. And basically, I just want to make sure that we're able to provide education and training for all manners of self-defense. So if somebody says they're not comfortable with a gun, great. We've got all these other options for you. But for those of us that still want to carry, I think having some good hand-to-hand skills are good as well, because you're not just going to be shooting at a paper target that's 21 feet away. I want to make it as dynamic as possible. I want to make sure that we're setting up some real scenarios, giving you some real life lessons, and helping you prepare for that fight should that day ever come.
Excellent. So Tristan, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you find David? And what led you to take the course?
For my experience, started about shooting when I was about 5 or 6. That's about when I got tinnitus the first time as well, and then joined the Marines out of high school just as a admin guy. Hated it to death. Became a range coach while I was in for the last 2 years, and been out for about 10 years now. And basically, I felt me and my friends, like, we know kind of what we're doing, but I really needed to go a step further with, especially my pistol work, just because the Marines as a whole I'm pretty sure, and the other branches as well, seem to have a very low pistol. Is very back of the board. It's a very basic, like all right, just shoot this 10 times, get out of here kind of mentality.
Yeah.
I knew, I'm sorry. And I'm more than comfortable carrying firearms, and I had been for a while then, especially all that the last 5 years in Arizona I've been, and I felt, well, I'm carrying, but I don't really believe my skills were up to par to actually implement them. It's like, can do it great on a flat range. I need a little bit more. And that's when I began searching out. And I can't quite remember how Dave's company came up in general, but I knew him. I found out his background. I have some friends in the area that work for other instructors that knew of him and could vouch for him as well. So I felt it was a great choice. And I felt I did, it was a really good self-check with his course and how to get to the next really work on yourself to get to the next level. But definitely comfortable carrying and implementing it on a daily basis as needed.
So Tristan, you mentioned something that I don't think we've really dived into. We haven't gotten into it in quite some time. You said that you had spoken to some people that you trusted that could vouch for him. Talk to us a little bit more about the decision-making process that you went through and that you go through when you're seeking out an instructor to spend your time and money with, but more importantly, to trust your self-defense and that life-saving training with.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, one of the greatest issues, and it's probably most people's issues, if right now you typed in firearms training, you're going to get 1,000 sources, from Gunsight here in Arizona to VODA somewhere along the line to Jim Bob CCW 20-minute class, and really finding something that is to the level that you need, and a minimum level of you will actually learn from them, and that is a high enough level for yourself. Because, like I said, it's like, I've been comfortable with shooting, so I don't need a beginner class. I need how do I use what I know, or what do I need to work on to improve on what I know. And it was you really almost do need someone to vouch for you, I think, in an area probably more like an area like Arizona and Phoenix, where we just have such a huge industry here for training, for manufacturing, for everything firearms related. There's an option at every corner. And I'm not going to say who they're from, because I don't want to put words in their mouth because of my really terrible memory, but they knew who David was. They knew C2, his previous company, and they could vouch for the company. And that's what I really needed to go forward in a class like this, because you really don't know who you're going to show up and get. And I mean, unfortunately, I think several other you guys might know, it's like being a veteran often is a big title in the class, and that usually means about 10% to me of any value. Because I mean, you've probably seen like the Navy shotgun familiarization course does not make you qualified to teach anybody really beyond pull the trigger. So
Nice. David, where are your thoughts with that? And what are some suggestions that you have? If you had an out-of-state family member that couldn't come travel with you, or somebody that you cared about, what's some advice that you would give that person that you cared about when they're seeking out an instructor to train with?
Well, like he said, the industry is really tough. I mean, especially here in Arizona, you can throw a rock in any direction, you're going to hit somebody who says that they're a firearms instructor. When you're in the industry long enough, you begin to hear certain names more frequently than others. Name and reputation are super huge, super important to me. And that's one of the reasons why it took me so long to actually start my own company. I kept telling the guys, we're not there yet, we're not there yet, we're not there yet. What I was waiting for was to establish a big enough name and a big enough reputation, enough business contacts that we're not really out there floating by ourselves. If you even look at our homepage and scroll down to the bottom, I want to say we're up to like 20 something affiliates and sponsors, because that name is super important. Who knows you and how do they know you? And, all of our sponsors and affiliates, I know the owners of those companies. And so I feel good about recommending their companies to my students. And I know that all of them feel good about recommending our training to their customers, because we'll contact each other directly and be like, hey, we heard something, let's get this fixed, because name and reputation in this industry is super huge. So I've got a lot of contacts from a lot of states over the years now, having done this. And so usually when people contact me like, hey, I'm looking for somebody in this state, then I reach out to my alumni group or my personal page and say, who do we know that's in this state if I don't know somebody already? And then I'm looking for that same caliber of instructor to vouch for somebody in that area. And then I'll get their contact information and pass it along, because it's about who you know and not your Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. I spent a lot of money on those social media channels and stuff when I was first getting started to kind of get the word out there. But I've dialed back. I don't spend money on social media anymore. I rely heavily on student feedback, and for them to grab their brother's, uncle's, cousin's, sister, because word of mouth is king, I think, in this industry. So you've just got to really make sure you're spending enough one-on-one time with every single student to help them achieve their goals that they came to that day, to make sure when they go home that they leave satisfied. And if you do that, besides all the training you do on the side to keep your skills up, you should be doing okay. But that's really what I tell people all the time is you better know.
Man, that reminds me, when I was years ago, I was talking to a local gun shop owner here in Albuquerque, and just talking about a basic concealed carry class and some deficiencies that I had thought there were in the courses that were offered. And I had mentioned, I said, we're going to do, we're going to shoot more than 25 on the range, not an exorbitant amount or an unreasonable amount, but we're also going to go over, presenting the handgun from concealment, some of that stuff, because that's not required in the New Mexico concealed carry course. And he was like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to offer that in your concealed carry class. That's a 200 level class that you can sell to your concealed carry students. And I was like, well, wait a second. I was like, if I'm going to sit here and believe, the hype around, my ego or whatever it was, that this is probably going to be, let's be honest, generally most firearms owners, they take one class, and that's the state mandated concealed carry course. If this is the only class that they're going to take, and this is the information and the training that they might have to bet their life on, they should probably get more than the bare minimum. And if it's a concealed carry class, you probably should do some of the concealed carry stuff in there. So it's funny that you mentioned that, leading with your students' best interest and making sure that they're achieving the goals that they have for themselves in the class. I think that's something that gets lost in the marketing hype around concealed carry courses. And kind of thinking about this the last few days with regards to mandatory training, I think mandatory training creates an artificial market, right? And there's an influx of instructors that now want to offer this class because it's mandatory. So there's an artificial market for it because it's mandatory, and then it just bottoms out the level of instruction. Whereas if it was a true free market system, right? The only instructors in that space are going to be instructors that can earn a living in that space. And the only way you do that is by providing valuable training. So I just wanted to jump on the soapbox there before we actually talked about EDC essentials. So talk to us a little. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I really wanted to say that, I mean, I think what the point you're making there is just absolutely 100% on topic. I mean, it's on spot for sure.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but so it's refreshing that there are people, that there are instructors out there that have foregone the right. Like David, you talked about, you put it off until you had built a name around yourself and this reputation that was worth staking yourself on. So that's absolutely commendable and awesome, and you don't see it a lot, right, these days. But I would like to talk about EDC essentials. I know our listeners and our viewers really want to get into this class. So talk to us a little bit briefly about the minimum requirements for that class, the gear, how much ammo they're going to need, and if there's a minimum skill set. And then I want to kick it over to Tristan and talk about the gear that he brought with him to that class. But just kind of give us a big picture view. What gear, if I'm taking that class, what do I have to show up with?
Well, so you're going to have to show up with your pistol, 3 magazines, 500 rounds. It's an 8-hour class. We have an hour break for lunch, but it's a true 8 hours on the range. So I think in total there's 9 hours scheduled. So your skill set, you need to have basic fundamentals of firearms. So I want to be able to see you shoot probably a 4-inch group at 21 feet and have a safe holster draw. So I put all that in the course outline when you're signing up for it. It's sent to you in an email, confirmation email, what the course requirements are, etc. So that's the basics of what I'm looking for. I don't really tell them they have to take our precision pistol class first or the holster fundamental class first, but if they struggle, then that's usually where I redirect them so we can get them up to speed. But I haven't had a lot of issues with that. Usually we have enough instructors on the line that we can. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Did I lose you?
No, we still got you. You cut out briefly.
Mic check.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're going in and out a little bit, but we got you back now.
Ugh. Time to relocate.
That's the
Did I lose
joys
you
of
guys?
the internet. No, we're still here.
Okay. How much did you hear?
Do you have the coronavirus now? Should we quarantine you and make sure you have 10,000 cases of toilet paper?
Yeah, so we lost you right after, I think, the safe holster draw. We can pick it up from there. I think that'll be a good spot.
Yes, I don't put any prerequisites like they have to take other classes before they come to mine. I just give them a real sense of the skills that we're looking for, because I've had a lot of people say, hey, I'm at this skill set, so I don't want to take the baby beginner course. You're going to make me go through, class 1, 2, 3 in order, or can I just show up and do it? And so I give them the opportunity to show up and do it. But the minimum requirements, like I said, you have to have these tools, this equipment, and you have to be able to perform these skills. And if you're not at that, skill set, then we'll reschedule you or whatever. But usually we're able to coach them into where they need to be. And sometimes I've had them take the EDC class and they're like, oh man, this is so awesome. Like, I found out I really need to work on more holster stuff or more precision stuff. So I'm going to come back and take those beginner courses to get up to speed.
Hey, David, so let me ask you if I have some friends, first of all, that they're not new to firearms, but they're new to firearms training. I was actually just talking about you guys last week, and I was telling him, hey, come on, watch our podcast tonight. So I don't know if he's on or not, but anyway, he may reach out to you, and he's a newer student, so drawing from holster, all that stuff. So let's say he takes your course and he actually is somebody, or anybody, not just so much my friend, so I don't call him out because he's going to call me. But let's say somebody in there is having struggling issues with holster work or one of these basic classes. And like you said, you're going to recommend them to lead them towards, hey, why don't you take one of these courses? So do you let them continue the day? Do you give them a credit to come back to that course later? What would be your protocol if something like that was to happen?
Well, our number one goal obviously is to make sure everybody achieves their goals when they come to class. So, and sometimes students don't really know what their goal is. They're like, well, I came here to learn this. And then we find out, well, you're not quite at the level yet to get there. So we're going to set some new goals for you. Maybe it is precision pistol or holster fundamentals. So usually I'm staffed well enough to give everyone some one-on-one attention. Part of our range safety brief, and I told Tristan this too, is listen, if we tell you to do something, then regardless of what everyone else on the line is doing, keep doing what we told you to do, because even though we're all on the line together, I may have everybody doing something different at the same time. And again, I've got the additional instructors that make that possible. So he might show up for an EDC course and we have the structure in place that we can just work with him more on the precision pistol and holster fundamental. And get him up to speed. He may not complete the EDC class, so he might have to come back and retake it. Or if it really comes down to safety is all we care about. So if it's a matter of you not keeping the muzzle down range, or that's really all I look for. If you can keep the muzzle down range and go at your pace, whatever that is, then we'll continue to work with you and help you with your goals for that day. There's only been a few times where I said, you know what? We just don't have enough staff here to really give you that kind of attention. So we're going to pause the class right here. We're going to have you come and do the whatever it is you need, the precision or the holster class, and then we'll have you come back and you can retake the class again free of charge. So it's really on a case-by-case basis how we handle it. Every student's a little different. We've done lots of different things to help them achieve their goals, but we're really about building relationships and a community. That's why we have the alumni pages. We want students to feel like even though they may have left and even though they might have gone to another state or they're training with somebody else, still have questions about what they can do or what they can work on. They can reach out to us anytime, and that's what it's really all about, building relationships. We want to become like lifelong trainers, not just one and done. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, that's something I've been struggling with for the last 6 or 8, 12 months is just the maintaining those relationships. And, we have to, as trainers and instructors, we have to continue those relationships and continue those conversations.
Absolutely.
Tristan, talk to us about the gear that you used in that class. What gun were you running, the holster, the ammo you were shooting, all that good stuff that the gearheads really, really want to know about.
Well, for me, I'm running about a 5-year-old G-code holster with a VP9 with a mag caddy on the side. And then I brought about 3 extra magazines with me. And I believe it was just a loose 1,000-round box of Federal 115s or American Eagle 115 grain, something 9 mil, but stock sights, pretty much stock VP9.
Nice. You run appendix?
Yes.
Yeah. Man, you should check out the Tenacor holster. I think it's the Velo. Man, I used to run the G-Code Incog holster, and I swore, I was like, man, I'll never find a better holster. Actually ordered the Tenacor because I went to I got an optic on my gun. So I needed a new holster. I was like, I'll try it out. He has the no questions asked. If you don't like it, send it back deal. I said, well, let me try it out because there's a quick turnaround time, and G-Code was like going to be a few weeks or whatever. So I get the holster, right, and the clips aren't on it. And I'm like, shit, I got to put together my own freaking holster. This is ridiculous. Kind of pissed me off, right? I was a little bit bougie. And then so I put the clips on. It took me like 3 minutes to do or whatever. Much less of a deal than I made it out to be. And man, this holster is probably the best holster that I've ever worn. It's super comfortable. I used to swear by the G-Code holsters, and I feel bad even in mentioning and talking so highly about Tenacor because the G-Code holster is a great holster, super comfortable. But man, the Tenacor that I'm running is freaking nice. So if you ever have to get a new holster, check those guys out.
Okay.
So I have a quick follow-up for David.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on with you right now?
So my battery's going dead. I was like, I'm gonna go grab my extension cord. And then I sat down, and it's like mosquito season, and this freaking bird like flew into my face. I was like, what the hell?
I'm like, did we just get a meth head on the podcast or what?
I think so.
Nice. That's going to make sense to 0 people that listen to the podcast. So talk to us, David, while we're on the topic of gear, in this class or in general, you can speak in general terms. What are some guns that people show up that just do very well? You look at the gun and they're not going to have any issues with it. You don't have to worry about the last time they cleaned it. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, what are the guns that you see showing up in class that just, that there's going to be a problem with it?
All right. I hate to bag on gear, honestly, because I tell everybody to run what you brung. And there's a lot of instructors get tied up on gear. There's a lot of students get tied up on gear. And I have seen students make a fool of instructors, and I've seen instructors make a fool of students trying to talk about one or the other being better than the other. So and how that goes about is they're like, oh, you brought that, it's going to cause all kinds of malfunctions. Well, then the guy gets out there and doesn't have a single malfunction, and he runs his gun better than the instructor. It's like, hey, so what do you think of Springfield now? We've seen like Demolition Ranch actually shoot a high point with another gun. Like the high point took an impact from a 40 caliber, then he picked it up and kept shooting it. So, high point gets a bad rap, and I think it's the ugliest piece of, on the planet. It looks like you're shooting a brick, but I've never had a problem with it. I want to say the standard of what everybody brings is usually, Smith & Wesson, Glock, very few Springfields. The majority of, like 90% of the class is always Glock. You'll have some HK, some Walthers, SIG, obviously, and generally all those will run. I have more issues with ammunition than I really do firearms. Winchester white box, is something that I used to shoot out of my 45, no problem. But I've seen more students have issues with Winchester white box than any other ammunition made. Most everything else is, because they wanted to shoot their own reloads or whatever. So we vet all that. We go through, we check to make sure that all the firearms are functioning properly before the students get on the line. We check the ammunition that they brought. If we feel like there's going to be an issue, or for whatever reason the firearm doesn't pass our safety check, then we'll offer them to use one of our firearms and use our ammunition, etc., for a fee, rather than send them home, or we'll ask them if they brought another gun. But yeah, we try to make students proficient with what they brought. And then they'll discover through the drills what holster works, what firearm works, what ammunition works, what sights work. They'll discover on their own that, well, I can't do that because this holster's this and this gun's that. And I'm like, so what are you going to do about it? I guess I'm going to get a new gun. I guess I'm going to get a new holster. I'm like, okay, cool. What do you recommend? Well, here's what you're looking for. So if it meets that standard and it's in your budget, then get it. And if it doesn't meet that standard, then that's not something you want. So that's typically how I handle that.
I like
you have the occasional flashlight that falls off, or the red dot that doesn't work, or the sights that are slightly pushed to one side, and we just work around whatever complications we have. In our prime, working for a previous company, we were doing 30 classes a week with hundreds and hundreds of students at 3 locations. So we got a ton of experience just working around all those things. I want to say there's more issues with ammunition and the individual shooters, but than really the gear.
So I want to compliment you on using pushing students' gear to fail so that they understand, what they're up against. Definitely, awesome. I love that. But I also want to ask you, and this is more of a curiosity question for me than, the podcast's purpose, but what types of ammunition do you find on the line that actually perform flawlessly? I mean, like, I own the high points. I shoot crappy ammo, but I do it for the reason of experimenting with and making sure that, and, forcing reloads and all that stuff. But What types of ammunition do you find on the line that actually work really well?
MagTech. I did a post, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, where I had a brand new factory box that I opened up, and there was a primer missing. Never seen that in a MagTech box, and I've shot hundreds of thousands of rounds of MagTech Federal. I've shot hundreds of thousands of rounds of Federal ammunition. Cellular and Bellet, I don't think I can pronounce it right. I've shot hundreds of thousands of rounds of that ammunition. And those ammunition manufacturers, like Federal especially, has some neat characteristics when you go into maybe shotgun ammunition or you get into rifle ammunition.
Agreed.
So you can tell the boxes apart, you can tell the ammunition apart. I think Federal is really great for somebody getting into the gun industry who, doesn't want to be concerned about mixing something up.
So have you ever had any experience with like Freedom Munitions, the reloading companies out there? Have you seen some flaws on your line that might, deter some students from carrying that ammo, or not carrying, but actually training with that ammo?
Yeah. You mentioned the brand Freedom Munitions. I haven't experienced any issues with it. But I've heard stories of a gun ammunition supply company cheaper than dirt, where they were taking somebody's throwaways and reboxing it and selling it as the brand name stuff. So that's just rumor. That's just rumor mill. I did have a customer who bought a 1,000-round case of 223 from Remington and went out on the line to shoot his brand new 223 carbine. And there were 5 boxes in the case that were labeled 223, and it had 300 blackout in it.
Oh shit!
Unfortunately, he had shot it. It detonated his brand new rifle and didn't injure him. But we put all the pieces together. We went through the rest of the case, found the other boxes, and told him, "Hey, you need to contact him with the lot number." And Remington was badass, went behind and reimbursed him for his rifle, sent them a new one, sent them probably a couple cases of ammunition as an apology. And absolutely, wanted all that stuff back so they could figure out how that happened. But yeah, so no, the majority of the stuff that I run into is usually shooter induced. They've modified their firearm. They had Uncle Bob do something to it, or they installed it themselves, or, they got a great deal on something and, it's too good to pass up. And, so it's usually shooter induced. The home reloads is one of the biggest ones. Are those the ones you reloaded? Oh, my buddy reloaded them for me. They're like, all right, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, agreed.
But unfortunately, myself as well as my instructors, we've done reloading, so we know what to look for that stands out. So if there's anything that stands out with the reloads, then I won't let you shoot it. Because I don't just think about that shooter himself. I also think about the shooter that's going to be on his right and his left. It's like, for any reason, if that thing detonates because, you didn't build your ammunition properly, I don't want another student getting injured because of it. So I usually have an in-depth conversation with them about how they reloaded it, what charge they're using, what kind of powder they're using. And if it's something I haven't heard of, I can text one of my guys real quick and be like, hey, have you ever heard of this? So it's really a judgment call. But if I don't feel warm and fuzzy, then you're not shooting it.
I like it a lot.
Tristan, talk to.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to. Who did I cut off right there?
It was me.
Go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, just to go off David's, I've never understood some of the mentalities people going into a class such as that, because to me it's an investment, and you can trust your reloads all day, and I have no problem shooting reloads on my own time, but you're spending time and money for a course, regardless of the price. I don't know why people don't have to cheap out on ammunition because inducing recoil or inducing malfunctions all day might be great on your own time, but what's the point if you're going to do that in a course for 8 hours?
Agreed.
And you're a problem on the line now for everybody else, but you put 200, 300, 400, are you going to go to gun site with a broken Taurus and a case of your grandpa's reloads? It's like, you're wasting your own time. You're throwing your own money away to be at that point if you're just not going to make that small investment.
Yeah, I totally
agree.
That's another thing that you brought up too, because you said Taurus. I'll brag to everybody how much I don't like Taurus. Usually all the really crappy guns, they get weeded out in the intro courses, and I teach more of the advanced courses. So I'll say in our intro courses, well, we see everything. We see charter arms, we see, and charter arms, the revolvers, they're notorious for the cylinders locking up and you can't open it, pieces falling off. So I've seen a lot of the janky guns, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like the basic intro pistol class. I let my boys weed through that farmer's nest. So by the time they finally get to me, with precision pistol, holster fundamentals, and more, that's been weeded out. So that might be another reason why I don't see a whole lot of junk stuff coming in.
Yeah, you're the lucky one.
Yeah, we're about to sell our charter arms. Revolver. No, I didn't. So we needed a loaner gun for a class, and I was like, all right, let me get something economical. It's a revolver. Man, this thing is terrible. It is absolute dog shit. It's like who's using our revolver? Come over here for a second safety brief, and also how this thing is going to work on you. Tristan, talk to us a little bit about the actual class itself after the range safety brief and all that good stuff. What does the first hour or two of actual shooting look like from the student's perspective?
So for there's a couple of caveats with my course, and I don't know why. I have this magic power for if I sign up or am assigned to a firearms course of any kind, it will be the smallest class in the. So for myself, it was just myself, and I don't know why. Even in the Marines, it would be just me and one other person to what's normally a massive course. And I didn't mind that because, hey, how many people get one-on-one time on accident? So I would say the first hour or two was kind of, as David was pointing out there, going over what your gear was for the day, kind of checking it through, making sure everything was kind of good to go before we start. And then really just assessing me at my then level. Like, what does my draw look like? Can I hit? What's my accuracy look like? You're talking about there, my sights were about an inch off, it turned out, and I never noticed before. So that was something we corrected for in the class as well. But for myself, the first hour was just advancing pretty quickly through, base fire, doing a quick precision fire test, and then moving on to moving pretty quickly for us. Big one thing for me that I wanted to see and that I received in the first hour was making sure that draw from the holster was safe and correct. Because you can watch 100 YouTube videos, you can do it 100 times in your home, but it's like you don't really know if you're doing the proper technique till you actually sit down and work with someone.
What was your most difficult part of the class, Tristan?
Really, fairly good drill of multiple shapes, multiple numbers, multiple colors on 3 targets behind a hostage.
Yes.
And really looking for and identifying that correct target before taking shots. And you really will get really good on your sidestep and really double check that muzzle awareness while moving, especially with himself and another instructor, Gary Himmel was behind me. And that's it was just a good mental game exercise while going in there. It's like, I knew I could hit them, but Yeah.
David, tell us more about that drill that he's talking about.
So, there's a lot that leads up to that. So with all of our classes, I don't care if you signed up for our Navy SEAL underwater basket weaving in the dark class. We always start off with the fundamentals first. Gear check, your holster draw. We usually do that dry first. And then we get you into some, draw from the holster and shoot one shot. And then we'll have you shoot some cadence drills to see who's got a good cadence and, who's going to be kind of going slow, and we want to get accuracy all under control. So a little review over stuff that you should know. So to make sure that, all right, before we run and gun, here's what we have. One of the final exercise is what he's talking about. So we work on a lot of the individual drills first to build up to that. But once you finally get to the final drill where everything gets put together, you're not going to be standing stationary if somebody's trying to hurt you or hurt someone you care about. You're going to be moving. You're going to be moving to the right. You're going to be moving left. You're going to be moving forward. You're going to be moving backward. And so we set up, 3 targets where, you might start in the right, the middle, or the left. And we start off with some simple stuff where it's only a couple of numbers or a couple of colors or a couple of shapes. And then we make it more complicated. We start adding more digits. We get up to like 8 or 9 digits till your brain falls apart. And then you actually have to move to where you can see where that target is. And since there's multiple letters, shapes, and colors and numbers on every target, you actually have to search for it before you find it. And then it's still a small target. So you have to aim for it. You can't wing them.
Are you guys moving behind cover, or is this just open?
No, this one's just open. We do cover and concealment in the next class, and this sort of start getting you used to doing that. And then the next one we have broken up to be low light with cover and concealment.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned originally you were going to do fighting pistol 1, 2, 3. What would this be on that curriculum? Is this number 1?
Yeah, this would be number 1.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, I think off camera was that we had to change the name of it because we had a few customers who told us, they weren't really interested in learning how to fight with their pistol. That sounded too intense. And I was like, all right, maybe we need to change that name, because really I want the class name to communicate what it is you're going to be doing. And, I fell in love with that name and said, all right, that's what we're going to do, because I really think it is essential to anybody who carries for their own personal protection. Is like, these are the things you need to know.
So you mentioned it's an 8-hour class with 500 rounds, and you talked a lot about the students' goals. If you were to look at this class on paper, what are those essential skills that are covered and trained and practiced in this level class?
Well, again, there's a review of the fundamentals. But while we're reviewing the fundamentals, we explain the importance of your holster draw, mainly so that you can have good retention of your firearm. We work on some close retention shooting, and we talk about when, where, why, and how you would use it, because there's a lot of YouTube videos out there where somebody's standing close to the target and they're just popping rounds. It doesn't really explain how they got there or what kind of control you're looking for before you attempt to do that. Because if you're close enough to grab onto them, they're close enough to grab onto you. So you shouldn't be reaching for your pistol until you're in a certain position and have them secured in a certain way. And then we work on using the appropriate distance from your body with the shooting that you're doing from the target. And we kind of pace that off. So as you get further back, you can start stretching your arms out a little bit more, and some distance shooting. And then we get into some sidestepping, but we also get into some turning. So we'll have you facing left or right and turning and looking for your target, engaging it. And then we'll have you facing uprange. And then once again, the startle response, you're going to look first and say, hey, what the hell was that? And then you're going to rotate, turn, and draw. So we're implementing a lot of those things to get their footwork while handling a firearm under control before we have this drill going on, because I don't want them thinking about their feet with the drill. I want them thinking about the drill. And so you got to take those, you got to build that foundation first, and get their footwork under control before you give them a complicated test like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. And I would imagine that if you were to look at a gunfight and what happens in a gunfight or a defensive use of your handgun, so really breaking those skills down into, okay, this is what's most important, and then breaking those skills down. And it sounds like you're task building, so the students are able to crawl, walk, and then run, which is awesome. What are some of the more challenging skills that students come into the class? What are some of the things that students have to work on a little bit more to kind of pick up and understand? Is it like the moving with the gun in the hand, or is it the
No, not really. I mean, everybody's walked before, everybody's stood before, everybody's turned before. What it really breaks down to is strong fundamentals. If you have weak fundamentals and I start asking you to walk, run, the gun handling gets bad. So we got to have strong gun handling before we start introducing all the moving, turning, and walking or running. Once that's really good and they're doing that without thinking, and that's one of the reasons why we do some cadence drills to get them to do some speed shooting. We want to see some fast holster draws. We want to push their limits, because obviously when you push them, that's another place where it starts to fall apart, when they're working on a time crunch. And then we dial it down slow. Like, all right, now you don't have to do it fast anymore, but we want you to walk and do it. We want you to talk and do it. We want you to turn and do it. And, we want you to focus on the turn. We want you to focus on the walk. Make sure that you're facing down range before you even start the draw. So it's like, chewing bubble gum and walking. It's you got to learn how to chew the bubble gum first.
Makes sense. Tristan, for you, who do you think this class is for?
This class, it's definitely for someone who's handled firearms, that is comfortable handling firearms, but they're not a novice. It's not a class to learn how to shoot. If you are not comfortable with pulling a trigger consistently, and his base accuracy test is a pretty good line. Can you make a 3-inch group at 21 yards or 21 feet? So, yeah, I'd call it a beginning intermediate shooter, someone who knows how to shoot comfortably. Firearms are not a fear to them anymore.
So what does that mean? I mean, let's get a little bit more specific as far as, I mean, paint me a picture of who should be looking at this class.
All right. A person that is familiar with how to operate their firearm. Cleaning, stripping's fine. I can pick up, I can load it, I can shoot it without a second thought. They have acceptable accuracy within those terms.
Okay, so what you're saying is this class is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying is this class is for somebody that is a 3 to 5 year old gun owner. I've been to the range. I've done my thing. I've joined a couple of groups. I've taken 3 or 4 classes, and now I want the next step. Is that
yes? This is that big. I would say the big step, dipping your toe into the next big lake. I get in the big lake now.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, you're not waiting in the Shaolin, standing at a flat range at shooters with a $10 rental. Like, you've committed to carrying, you've committed to shooting in general as a reasonable defense, and you're taking a reasonable and realistic approach to what you need to be able to do.
Yeah, now I want to hit the class. I mean, it sounds amazing.
So it sounds like, David, bring that home for us. When you were developing this class, who are you developing it for? And at the end of the day, when a couple days before class, when you're going through your student registrations, who's the student that's going to benefit the most from this class, and why?
Well, I think this is going to benefit somebody who's probably been carrying their firearm for a while and wants to maybe check and see if their skills are up to par. We were talking earlier about the CCWs and, what those classes consist of and stuff. And, I've got guys here in the Valley that are doing a 1-hour class for $20, and it includes the paperwork and fingerprinting. So our CCW looks very different. We just cover the law and legal ramifications of and justification of use of force in the state of Arizona, both for physical and deadly physical force. Because it gives you a real eye-opening experience as to what the law says. I mean, just because somebody breaks in your house doesn't mean you can shoot them. Just because somebody's trying to steal your car doesn't mean you can shoot them. We try to get rid of all the, it's better to be carried by 6 and judged by 12 mindsets, and we try to, show some real life incidents where, your skills have to be pretty strong to kind of convince them, hey, you need to do more than just this. We became a constitution carry state back in 2010. There's some pros and cons to that. The pro to that, obviously, is that anybody can carry a concealed firearm as long as they're a legal possessor. The con to that is we also did away with our curriculum, and the instructors having to adhere to that curriculum. It used to be a 16-hour class. 8 hours was law and legal. 8 hours was really basic, and just fired a few rounds at 10 feet and 15 feet. So it was not a tough qualification. And I thought it lacked training back then. And, for years I thought to myself, man, I really would like to see a class like this, EDC Essentials, that would really push people and open their eyes and show them what it is that they really need. And I wish that this was the standard for a CCW class. And then I had to think about, well, how many times we taught a CCW class and somebody brought the brand new gun, never shot before, still in the case, and they were going to attempt to qualify with it and knew nothing about it. And I was like, they'd have to take an additional 16 hours of training over a period of time with lots of practice before they could be at that level. And then I started thinking about senior citizens who are in their 60s, who are at the greatest disadvantage for, robbery and breaking and entering and just, whatever else going on. And would I still require the same standard for them? And I thought, well, no, because they couldn't do half that stuff. I want to make them the best they can be. So I sort of started looking at the standards as being different. I want to focus on the individual student and make them the best that they can be. But I often have my classes described as drinking from a fire hose from people who have been training for a number of years, who are really confident in their skills. And I mean, it's not really meant to break your confidence. It's meant to push and challenge your confidence. And that confidence changes with every class depending on the students. There's some that are law enforcement, some that are military, private security, church security, the average Joe citizen, the grandmother. And so when I was telling Tristan, you're going to be doing something different than everybody else, don't do what they're doing, it's mainly because I'm going to push the individual in each and every single class. And so those levels are going to be different because I want everyone to get something from the class. So for this one, you definitely want to have strong fundamentals. Otherwise, you just won't survive. If your holster draw is weak, we eliminate that really fast. That's one of the first things we look for. If your precision is weak, that's going to eliminate you pretty fast. And if your cadence is weak, it's going to eliminate you pretty fast, because this course requires that you are fast from the holster or efficient from the holster, and that you have a good cadence. So we're looking for, half-second splits or better.
Yeah, I was going to say, I took my concealed carry course in Arizona in 2001, back when it was required. And it was kind of my beginning of really getting understanding of concealed carry, right? And now that you guys have constitutional carry, and Dave, so tell me a little bit more about constitutional carry. And I know this is a little bit off the EDC essentials, but I get this question a lot. So you can it's constitutional carry, you can carry as long as you're legally to do so, but adding a concealed carry permit in Arizona also adds reciprocity for some states. And you can also go into other locations that you can as constitutional carry, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. And my second question on that is, with this EDC Essentials course, does this also include a concealed carry permit, or is that a separate class?
So in our state, to apply for the permit, you just have to show proof of any firearm training. So you could take a basic intro pistol class, or the NRA home firearm safety. If you show any firearm education training at all, you can apply for a permit. And again, that's kind of selling you short, in my opinion, because I don't want any of my students to leave my class with a little pat on the back. You're good to go, Roger. Mm-hmm. That's setting them up for failure. I want my students to call me back and tell me how they succeeded in the fight, not how they lost, or read their name in a paper and be like, I think I taught that dude something. Yeah, I never want that. I don't know how I would handle that emotionally, to be honest with you, if my student was not successful in the fight. So it's something I take to heart. That being said, the Arizona constitutional carry is just for firearms, and our CCW is for all weapons. And we've just recently legalized nunchucks. So the only thing left that you're not allowed to legally carry under your trench coat is the blackjack. So now there are establishments that might have a no firearm sign posted, but you're legally still allowed to carry your taser, your baton, your machete, any other assortment of concealed carry. A folding blade of 4 inches or less is a pocket knife in our state. It's not a weapon. So if it says no weapons, you can't take your taser, firearm, or baton, but I can still take my 4-inch folding pocket knife. And those are all things that we teach you in our CCW class. Like, you don't have to be there defenseless. And so now, obviously, I try to avoid all those places as much as like the plague. Also in our state, because we're constitutional carry, all state buildings are required to provide you a means of locking up and securing your devices when you get there. So if I show up to a courthouse, I don't have to leave my firearm in my car so it can get stolen, because it's a famous place for stuff to get stolen. I can walk into the courthouse, let them know that I have my CCW and I need to secure my gear, and I get treated really soft hands. They just hand me the keys and point to the lockers, and I go over there and download all my gear. So you don't get that benefit with not having a permit that I know of. You're allowed to go into restaurants or bars that serve alcohol for consumption. So like Chipotle serves alcohol for consumption on the premises. They took down all their signs. And Red Robin, even though the national brand says no, they've all taken down their signs. Costco's taken down their signs. So pretty much any place that serves alcohol for consumption, if they don't have a sign posted, you can go there because you have a CCW. If you're just a Constitution guy, you can't go there. You can't consume any alcohol while in possession of your permit. Your permit's only valid when you have it with your state issued ID, because there's no photo on it. Again, that's for your protection. We're recognized in 37 other states. And I think that about does it. That's the most important gee whiz of it all.
Good. I'm glad you added all that information, because we get that question kind of a lot, being that we're New Mexico and we're a neighboring state. And same thing here. So we're required to have a concealed carry instruction here, 15 hours minimum. And Jeremy and I, as concealed carry instructors, we've always said if we could ever get the constitutional carry, we'd vote for it 100%. That still doesn't mean that you shouldn't have any kind of training. And that's kind of where that line, that gray area line is, right? Even for our veterans here, if you've been retired less than 20 years, you can get your concealed carry permit here completely free. And I'm all for that, but I'm also for these veterans to make sure that you guys go understand the laws, because our laws are really funky. We have beer and wine establishments, 60% of gross food sold on site. You can conceal carry with a permit as long as there's not a sign. Any location that serves hard liquor for on-site consumption, you can't carry. So it gets really hairy if you don't understand the laws. So training is very important. But I didn't know that there was you could go to any firearms training and use that as kind of your training for concealed carry permits. So that's good information.
Yeah, and I mean, and I've got a good relationship with DPS. Dusty is the officer in charge over there, and I talk to him on a regular basis to find out if anything's changed. I mean, we talk at least once or twice a year because we do the armed guard training as well as the CCW training, and so I want to stay on top of everything. And I want to make sure that all of our students, I want to make sure he recognizes our certificates when they come through, so that they know that these students, went through this. So it's good to have that law enforcement, contact, because there are just so many people out there that are really, and I hate saying this, I really feel like they're just in it for the money. They've gotten a basic NRA pistol certificate, and I'm a training counselor for the NRA in every discipline. I went through the NRA Carry Guard training program before they kind of put that on pause, and successfully passed that. So like I've done everything I can. I've attended lots of training with, Travis Haley, who's here locally, Dave Spalding, and anybody I can get my hands on for that same reason, as I'm trying to push myself, because I can bring that back to my students. So I do this because I have a passion at it. If I make money at it, great. I'd love to be able to do this full time because I'm that passionate about it. I don't know, man. I don't understand why you would want to just one and done. Here's a base. I had a student contact me and say, hey, just down the street, this guy's doing it for 1 hour for $20. I want to sign up. I want to take your class. Okay. Here's the link.
Yeah, take the class. Right?
There's a
You
reason why-
you
there's
can
a
do
reason
it.
why it's as long as it is and how much it costs. I mean, John Correa is a good friend of mine with active self-protection. And, he's like, I don't do CCWs. He's like, if you want to take my CCW, it's 2 days long and it's exponentially this much money. And, you'll either pay for it or else I won't teach it. So he's like, I'm not playing that game anymore. You have to have these skills. That's the bottom line. So knowing that, I put it out there. I've tried every combination of convincing to the general public that, I'd love to do this 2-day class and I'd love it to be 8 hours along legal the first day, EDC essentials the second day. And really what you run into is just a bunch of newbies who just aren't really ready for that. So you run into time constraints, financial constraints. And so we've sort of broken up our classes where, the intro courses are about 4 hours and you can take them back to back. But most people find out when they take the first one, they're not ready for the second one. And then, EDC essentials is the first 8 hour all-inclusive kind of class. And when we do our traveling class, like we're going to go up to Compass Training Center this April, I think it's the first weekend in April, the 4th and 5th. Basically day one is EDC essentials. Day two is the barriers. And so we do a lot of we review the pistol precision, holster fundamentals, and day two is all EDC essentials. Because if I'm going to do a 2-day course, it's, out of town, I want to make sure it's really worth everybody's dollars. So you're probably going to shoot roughly 1,000 rounds over those 2 days. And you should be physically tired. I mean, Tristan can probably tell you that his shoulders and stuff were feeling a little sore after the precision pistol part.
Yeah, for me, it was my forearms gripping for 5 hours, working on that grip strength.
Yeah, the grip strength, man. That's something that's overlooked a bit. And I just got into some Captains of Crush grip trainers, and I was talking to a student about it recently, and I said, "Look, man, if it takes you X amount of pounds of pressure or whatever to grip the gun, and that's your 100% max, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Work on your grip strength because his accuracy was there. He was having some problem, in picking up that speed, right? So I had him shoot I said, just give me 3 rounds. We're at 7 yards, 3 rounds, best group possible." And it was not a terrible group, but wasn't anything to write home about. And I said, all right, go a little bit faster, right? And then he went, his cadence improved, right? I said, all right, go a little bit faster. And I said, what do you notice about your target? And he's like, yeah. I was like, dude, your group, the size is the same, right? Like your slow grip fire group is the same as your other group. So you can go, you have a lot of speed left in there. The thing that's holding you back is you're not trusting yourself. And it's really start working on that grip strength. There's something that I wanted to talk about with mentioning the 1 hour class for $20. Those students I don't want to say they're the worst kind of students, but the students that are shopping based solely on price, they negatively affect the quality of the course for the other students, right? Because they're disengaged, they're not contributing to the conversations, and when they are contributing, they're like, "What in the hell? What world are you living in? This is a concealed carry class, and you're talking about drive-by stuff? Like, come on, dude!" Like in the class Andy took with me years ago, had that question. The student was like, "What if you're driving down Central and a car pulls up next to you and starts shooting?" And I'm like, we're talking about the tiniest of like very small. And he's like, well, what happened to my cousin? I said, well, if this is something you're legitimately concerned about, you need to change your lifestyle, or you need to stop hanging out with the people that are living a lifestyle where this is something that you're concerned about, dude. And that was the last class that we ran at that price point. We raised our prices by 50%, haven't had trouble getting students. But the thing that I noticed is that the quality of the student is much different. It's people that take their training seriously. They're willing to listen. They want to listen and they want to learn. They're not there just to check a box. And that's, as an instructor, I'm like, it alleviates a lot of the safety concerns, right? Because a couple things I don't like seeing on a range, it's the front sight hat and the camo pants. Those two things together are scary. And it's a guy that my Uncle Bob taught me everything I need to know about shooting. I'm just here to check that box. But I want to circle it back. What are some things that you guys, Tristan and David, what are some things that you guys think students can do prior to taking this class or any firearms training class to really and prove the level of success that they'll see in a class. And that could be live fire drills or dry fire drills, whatever you guys think. Some advice you would give to a student that's taking the EDC Essentials class next month. What can they do to better prepare for it?
For a newer, for someone about to take it, I would say really assess yourself on, is this holster going to work? That would be one of my big concerns. Is this holster is going to work, and can you, and your manipulation. So it's probably the forgotten sin of nobody likes to dry fire for some reason. Then you need to really work, manipulations is 90% of shooting to me. Pulling the trigger is the last 10, but that would probably be my hardest. Like, that was the strongest suit I worked on, was get a good refresher on, is my accuracy still up to par, and is my holster good to go? I think you were talking about earlier about you're having to reassemble your holster. It's like, I don't know how many have had to re-Loctite straight from the factory, is go through and Loctite every damn thing I can find. It's really just that humility to me to have a proper assessment of what is my actual skill level and am I ready to take this course, for me, would be my thought.
Nice. What about you, David? What are some things students can do to better prepare for the class?
Honestly, I don't necessarily want them to do a lot of preparation as far as dry fires, holster draws, and accuracy tests at the range. We'll evaluate all that in the first couple hours, and you might just be reinforcing bad habits I want to break. I like the idea of him saying he's going to go through his gear, make sure everything's Loctited down so we don't have anything loose, bent, missing, or broken. I had one. Was that your class, Tristan, where the guy had the holster assembled wrong?
Well, for me, it was just, I was the only one there that day. Like,
okay.
I had the magic gods of I show up when nobody else does.
No, I had a guy who came to class, and it was one of those build-it-yourself kit holsters, and he built it in such a way that he couldn't get a grip on the gun because the clips are in the way. So we had to take time, probably 10, 15 minutes, taking that thing apart, reassembling it in such a way that he could use it. And so that really slowed the class down, and he missed out on getting to participate and learn and stuff. So we had to spend more time getting him caught up with everybody else. I definitely don't want to hold the rest of the class back. I want to make sure that you're on par with everybody else. But so make sure all your tools, equipment, and gear is working good. Like he said, do a good, honest assessment of whether or not you can shoot a 4-inch group at 21 feet. If not, then come take our precision pistol class. Our goal is to, again, I mean, if you could take our precision pistol class, I might have you working on some EDC essentials because you're already blowing it away or whatever. We don't limit you to whatever it is you sign up for. I really like to see the shooter shoot to get an actual assessment, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. I like it. On the gear thing, I think most classes, 3 mags is, you need 3 mags minimum. I would say double it. As a student that's taking a class, twice as many mags as recommended. And that's advice that Andy had given me in the last class that we took together. Students are over there stuffing mags, struggling to get ammo and magazines, and we're able to sit there and pick the instructor's brain or, shoot an extra drill or two in the in-between time because you got 6 mags ready to go. You're not borrowing time from the instructor to stuff your mags when you could be learning.
Yeah.
What we have a question from Matt. He wants to know what would be your top 5 choices for concealed carry, and we can maybe narrow that down to 3. But what are your top 3 choices for concealed carry as far as handguns go?
Well, it goes back to I like to answer these questions more broadly than that. First of all, I want to make sure you have a full firing grip. I want to make sure that the firearm actually fits your hand. A lot of folks are choosing something compact and small that works for their outfit. The longer you carry, the more you start dressing to fit the gun and less trying to make the gun fit your outfit. You want to make sure that the holster covers the trigger guard and that you're comfortable drawing it from concealment. And so if that pistol interferes with any of those things, and again, if it's got some external manual safety that you have to operate, then you need to be practicing with that external manual safety. If that first trigger pull is double action only, then that's how you need to practice your holster draw, because that answer broadens and allows you to have lots of options available to you versus, well, buy a Glock. I don't like that as an answer. It's too short, too sweet. It doesn't really accomplish much. I will say that I prefer to have all my triggers match. Maybe you don't always carry the same pistol, so I want to make sure that every one of my pistols has the same 3.5 pound break, that it's a flat face trigger, and that all of my pistols anyway are outfitted with Trijicon HD orange, so that when I draw that gun from the same place, from the same style holster, I get the same sight picture and the same trigger press, whether it's a Springfield XDS with a powder ribbon precision kit in it, or if it's a Smith & Wesson Shield, or if it's my Glock 19, or it's my Glock 17, or if it's my Springfield XD 45, or my CZ. I get the same trigger, same sights, coming from the same holster, same location. Consistency is what we preach in every single class. So whatever it is you carry, make sure that it's consistent with what you train with.
What you said they're the Trijicon HD. Do you do blacked out rear?
Yes.
Nice.
No red dot yet?
I just recently got a red dot. It's a right-on optic red dot. No, I take that back. It's a Hollison. I got a right-on coming. But yeah, I got a Hollison mounted on my Glock 19. I've been fiddling with it. It's pretty chill.
Yeah. I put a Shield RMS. Yeah, I put a Shield RMSC on my Glock 48, and I should have waited for the Hollison 507K. So now I have to remill the slide a little bit. But you gave a very good answer. My answer to Matt's question would be the Glock 48 with I run the Dawson Precision sight, front sight. I forget what the front sight is, but I like that rear. Or the Glock 48 with the Hollison 507K when it drops next month, or a Glock 48 in any combination of that configuration. So I'm really on Glock 48's nuts right now, especially with the 15-round mag from Shield Arms.
Coming from a guy that used to give me Glock crap,
Yeah, I still give you Glock shit
just to pick on me. You know what I mean? But I like the same thing you said, Dave. Very often, if you live in the social media world, somebody will say, "Hey guys, help me out with a good gun for concealed carry," and you'll get 40 people and 40 different answers, and it's usually that. And I know Jeremy's kind of joking, but well, I carry this. Well, just because you carry that, yeah, it doesn't mean that's the right answer, right? You know, so
well, when people ask that question on the internet, like every Tom, Dick, and Harry chimes in, and I have to scroll past it because it's so frustrating, because nobody asked the question, who are you? How long have you been shooting? What caliber are you looking for? How big is your hand? Have you measured it from the tip of your middle finger to the base of your palm or your trigger finger?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what's going to fit your hand. And how much do you weigh? How tall are you? Like, where do you plan to carry it? On your hip, outside the waistband, inside the waistband, appendix? Are you right-handed, left-handed? How good's your eyesight? Are you wearing glasses? Are they trifocals? I mean, there's so much that I need to know about you as a person and see how you handle a firearm, because there's lots of great guns out there. The other one that drives me nuts is people that go out and spend $1 million on a firearm and $5 on training.
Absolutely.
Or
you can't fix the gun to shoot for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost can. We're almost there, but I'd rather be able to pick up any gun and shoot it well. And again, with the training pistol, the class we did this last weekend, training instructors, that's exactly what we did. We had 12 students on the line, and I shot all their pistols for them in any way they wanted, right hand, left hand, one-handed right, one-handed left, to demonstrate that I can shoot a tight group regardless of the firearm you brought. And that's what I expect of instructors who want to be certified.
Yeah, I want to. VP9 is on my list, actually. I'm a Glock guy. Polymer 80 guy is what I carry with the red dot now. VP9 is something I do want, but damn it, I don't want to change holsters and mag carriers and everything else. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not doing it so far. But I tell you what, if I had unlimited money, you talk about the guns that can shoot for you. I really like that $5,000 alien gun that came out. That thing just really appeased me.
So I just picked something up at the store the other day and held it in my hand, and I'm excited to shoot it. And it came right in around the $500 price tag, and it's that CZ striker fired. I think it's the P10.
Oh,
Yep.
That was like picking up a glove, and that's, you want a firearm that fits your hand. That particular one, when I picked it up, I just was like, I mean, I would switch for that.
Yeah, the CZ and the VP9 are the two that are probably on my short list.
Yep, I've shot a lot of, I shot a lot of John's VP9s and stuff, and yeah, I would not mind owning one of those, especially with the new mods that they came out with and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So, Dave, tell us where we can find you in Arizona. What's your website, social media, all that fun stuff. All
right. So on Facebook, we're listed as Dynamic Combative Solutions. You can check us out there. On Instagram, it's D_C_S_training. You can check us out at www.dcs.training, and all of our courses are listed there. We're teaching at multiple facilities around the valley, both indoor and outdoor courses. We recently partnered up with Range Time LLC in Phoenix. They're located right off of I-10 and Ray, and that's going to be our new headquarters for all of our hand-to-hand combative classes, as well as our CCWs. They're located at 14647 South 50th Street, Suite 128. in Phoenix, Arizona, 85044, and our main phone number is 480-599-2188. But yeah, we do a lot of outdoor classes at Rio Salado, Ben Avery, Cowtown, and Archangel Shooting Range in Maricopa.
Nice, love it. Tristan, we didn't get your answer. What do you recommend for concealed carry?
I've just really hit the route of any modern quality firearm that fits your hand and you're comfortable. My personal model is, what's the biggest you can get away with comfortably? Yeah. I'm 6'4", and I used to carry an FNX 45, and the only reason I stopped shooting that was 45 was more expensive than 9.
Yeah, it's that, and the other piece of good advice is don't listen to what the guy at the counter is trying to sell you. And I was the guy at the counter trying to sell you for a few years. Yeah, we've had more students show up with the gun that and we'll tell them, don't buy. I don't have a gun. Don't buy a gun. Come to class, take the class. That way you know how to shop for the gun. And then they go out and they buy a gun anyway. That the guy at the gun store, this is the perfect gun for you. And like David was saying, they can't reach the trigger. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, you just wasted $400, $500 because this guy, they had a bet on who they could sell that freaking gun to, and you happen to be the person that walked in to buy it. But really, any modern semi-automatic handgun is probably going to do you well. The biggest one that you can carry will probably do you a little bit better. Find something that you're comfortable and confident shooting, and spend that money on training, and take the class first. I'm not aware of any reputable instructor that's offering courses where you have to own a gun to take that class. You know what I mean? David, I'm sure somebody showed up to that EDC Essentials class without owning a handgun. They had that other stuff squared away. You'd have a loaner gun for them.
So we actually have it built into our website. Whenever you sign up for a class, there's an add-on package where you can use our gun rental. And so I've got a plethora of firearms. We ordered 10 Glock 19s, all the holsters, belt carriers, like everything that you need is included in that kit and the ammunition, and it's super affordable. Like our intro classes comes with 100 rounds. I think it's $32, and as it gets the next package is 200 rounds at $64, and 500 rounds it's almost at the cost of the ammunition. So that you get everything included. You can just show up and shoot, because we get a lot of people that come in from Hawaii or Canada, etc., to train with us, and they can't bring their stuff with us. It's just too difficult to travel, especially like when we're sponsoring Dave Spalding. We've partnered up with True Shot Gun Club. You can order your ammunition before you arrive. You can use our gun rentals, and I'll pick up all the ammunition for everybody on Friday and show up on Saturday. So you got your tools, your kit, your ammo, everything waiting for you when you get there. And so all you have to do is show up and play.
Nice, I like it. If you take a class, find a class that you really want to take, and the instructor can't work with you, it's not a class you want to take. But reach out to David, some of the other guys that you've trained with, and I'm sure they'll have recommendations for folks in your areas or in your area. We appreciate everybody jumping on as always. David, before we jump off, did you have any last minute words, advice, encouragement for our listeners?
For me, once again, I'm not sure what it is with the gun community, but really have the humility to look at yourself and see where you are as a shooter and to move forward from there. I don't know what it is. It could be a PFC in the Marines. It could be Uncle Bob. It can be, Jim's been shooting for 50 years and they just will refuse to even suggest firearms training in their life for some reason. I'd never understood that thought. I know I'm not that good. It's been 60 years. It's like, what? You're still using a Weaver stance grip and a Smith & Wesson Police 357 revolver that Grandpa gave you. It's probably not going to work too well for you. Just be open to it, at least.
Nice. What about you, David?
Well, some of the things that I've learned over the years is it's really important to have the shooter assessment at the beginning of the class and a shooter assessment at the end of the class, because I want to prove to you that learning took place before you go home. I also don't want to just one and done teach you. I want to send you home with homework. So we have targets that we make available to you on our alumni page. We have videos that you can watch on our YouTube channel so that you can go back and remember what it was I said and how I said it, et cetera, to kind of help coach you along. Because I want you to continue developing your skills. So when you self-assess and decide, okay, I'm ready for the next one, I won't be fluttering over this, because like I said, we go over the fundamentals. We have our warm-up drill. Tristan can attest to the warm-up drill that, if you're struggling with that in the more advanced classes, then you're going to be, that it's almost game over at that point. The warm-up drill is going to push the envelope. So you want to have that cold.
And we had one last question come in. Matt wanted to know if you have an instructor up in Northern California that you could recommend. I commented back to shoot you a PM, and I'm sure you could track down somebody.
Yeah. I've got a lot in Southern California that I know firsthand. I don't know of anybody up in Northern California, but I'm sure if I reach out to my Southern guys, they can definitely make some recommendations. And if he shoots me a PM on Facebook or whatever, I'll be more than happy to get that information for him.
Awesome. Yeah. So shoot him a private message, Matt, and he'll get that out there to you. We appreciate everybody jumping on. Apologize that my segues were terrible today. If you've taken a class with me, my segues are probably the worst thing in that class. Remember, it's your life, it's your safety and protection, it's your responsibility. Stay safe, and we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks.
Thank you.